So hopefully this works well. Hi everybody, Dr. Tochi here. Vacay. I know you can't tell from my background because I'm using a background thing, but I'm on vacay. So I want to get the let me get the oh shoot. The TikTok is on a different phone. Oh my god, I don't feel like standing up. I just realized the TikTok people are on a different device. Okay. I'm just gonna have to stand up and go and get that phone. I don't feel like standing up to get the phone. Should I stand up and get the phone? Okay, hold on. Let me stand up and go get the phone. Let's see. And I haven't used the phone in a while, so hopefully it has a charge. If it doesn't have a charge, then the TikTok folks are out of luck. Because the plan is to be comfortable, not to suffer, but to be comfortable. So let's see if there's some charge. There's 64% battery. So they're only going to get 64% of class today. And let's look for TikTok. Yeah, there. So TikTok folks are only going to get 64% battery amount of class. I just noticed today is like the internet has been so slow. It's just been like horribly slow. Okay, I'm gonna go live now. So TikTok folks, hey TikTok folks, y'all only got 64% battery. So once the battery goes down, battery is down, and we're going to leave it. So Sunday night greetings to you too, Missouri Panda, and greetings to you, Esther, and to Miss Rosemary Ellen. Welcome to Sunday Touching Base. Yeah, I could have done it at 1 o'clock, but I was like, you know what? I'm entitled to rest, so I'm going to rest. Okay. So today's class, we're going to talk about lineage egregores. Okay. So remember to get your drink, your snack, your notebook, and your pen. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Tochi, aka Papa Dr. Tochi, mama of the men's and the women's. Okay. And you can book me at my website at tochi.us or drtochi.com. However you spell it, you will get there. Yeah, we fixed that now that however you spell the Dr. Tochi, you'll get a hold of me. So, anywho, so if you need your divinations, your spiritual counseling, your dream interpretation, spiritual practice coaching, to the website. I will be updating the website soon, taking out some things and streamlining it. So if there's stuff that you need on that website, you probably want to get what you need to get when you need to get it. Because as we come to the close of this year, I'm going to start streamlining what's on that website and reduce the number of things I'm offering. One of the things I've been going through with my personal coach, because I do have a coach, even though I coach others, I also have a coach who coaches me. We were talking about how I have so many offerings. I offer so many things, courses and books and classes and products and services and whatnot. So one of the things my coach was telling me is that I need to cut down and slash down, even on the membership. And she laid out a pretty persuasive case for that because it looks like I'm doing everything. Hello, Stephen. It looks like, I'm doing everything and all things, and I probably need to be focusing a little bit more. So take advantage of what you find on my website for now, because as we move into December and January, a lot of those things will be disappearing. Okay. As I'm just going to start streamlining and focusing things. Again, that website is drtochi.com, tochi.us. Today's class, okay, thank you for the likes. Today's class is going to be on lineage egregores. How do you know that you have an egregore in your family lineage? And how do you identify that? What are the symptoms of having a lineage egregore? If you're not familiar with the topic of egregores, I suggest you take some time to go watch the foundational classes I have put out on YouTube. They're saved on YouTube. I did them live on TikTok and YouTube, but they're actually available for replay on YouTube. So I have video on egregores and servitors. I have a foundational a video on what is an egregore. I also have a couple of videos on the Jesus egregore, where we talk about how people think that they are actually worshiping Jesus, but they're actually worshiping a Jesus egregore. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Jesus egregores out there, and people think that they are worshiping Jesus, but they're actually working with an egregore. Okay. Also put out a couple of videos on the shadow mother egregore and the shadow father egregore. So if you are having strange relationships, Hope 609, good evening to you too. If you are having strange or uncomfortable relationships with your parents, understand that there are egregores for that. It's the shadow mother egregore and the shadow father egregore. And those videos are available for replay on my YouTube channel, the Dr. Tochi channel. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the lineage egregores. So again, if you need a background in egregores, what they are, how they're created, what they do, please consult those foundational ones. I'm just going to go straight to it so that you know, um, we get with the program and I'm not holding folks back. Now, if you're on TikTok, just let you know that the charger or somewhere, I'm gonna try to charge y'all, but if it don't charge, you will get a cut off. Okay, so I started at 64% right now. Battery is at 59. So so just to let you know, in case we have a little bit of a snafu with power. Now, we already know from our introduction to egregores that you can have good and not so good egregores. You can have helpful and not so helpful egregores. And usually, when egregores are created, they're created for a reason. Egregores are created to perform tasks. Egregores, Sally Glam, thank you so much. You gave me the first ever gift you've ever given on TikTok. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you. And I hope that this class satisfies um, your expectation. Okay, so back to what I was saying. So the lineage egregore, every lineage more or less has its own egregore. Some of those egregores can be good egregores, and some of them are not good egregores. I have discussed in previous classes about egregores that i- if you know the function of an egregore, you can use that to your advantage. Those who are in my advanced member class, we did a demo last month in September using on how to use the Jesus egregore. We used a Jesus of Divine Mercy egregore, and we practiced in that class and discussed how to use that egregore to our own advantage. You can use an egregore without having to subscribe to the group or society or religion that created it. You can. If you can identify an egregore, you can use it to your advantage. So let's say, for instance, you wanted to use a Jesus egregore. You don't have to be a Christian to use the Jesus egregore. And this is the same with every other egregore. There are egregores for orishas. There are egregores for lois. Because sometimes people are coming out of religion and say, oh, well, I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I'm, whatever it is that I am. And we're of the pure path. A lot of times, people are working with egregores in their so called spiritual traditions. And they think that they're working with the real deal. They think that they're working with a deity. They think that they're working with a god or a goddess. They're working with the egregore. And so when you review the replays of those videos I put out on the Jesus egregore, you will understand how that is. Okay. And I'm still going to do classes on these other egregores. I just have to get around to it. Okay. So, what are these lineage egregores? Lineage egregores are egregores that were created by our ancestors to perform certain tasks. Egregores perform tasks. Deities and spirit guides are in charge of places in addition to performing tasks. Egregores are never in charge of any place or in charge of anything. All they're doing is a task. And the tasks that egregores do are based on what they were created for, the task they were created for. Okay. A lineage egregore can have multiple functions, but let me rephrase that. Let me rephrase that. An egregore usually has one task, one function. What I meant to say is that a family can have, or a lineage can have, multiple egregores. So let's say, for instance, we're looking at Hope 609, whatever your family name is. So let's say, for the sake of this class, and I'm not asking you to reveal your identity online right now. So let's assume that Hope 609 comes from the family of Hope, Mr. and Mrs. Hope, or Mrs. and Mrs. Hope, or Mr. and Mrs. Hope. I hope you see the humor in that, Hope. So I just need to pun on that. So let's say in the Hope lineage, the ancestors have created multiple egregores. They could create an egregore to control the females. And oftentimes, when you're talking about controlling females in a lineage, it's because of lineage purity. The people in that lineage do not want to have their bloodline mixed willy-nilly with any other kind of bloodline. So they will create egregores to control the females in that lineage, so that the females in that lineage are only producing for that lineage. And understand there's only so much I can say on a live stream on these platforms. I can say a lot more on my Patreon. And so that is why you have certain rituals geared towards women to safeguard the fidelity, the virginity, the sanctity, and all the itties of the women in the lineage. Okay? Because you can always tell who the mother is, but you can't always tell who the father is until DNA. Okay? So we we have egregores in the lineage that are designed or tasked with controlling the females. We have egregores in a lineage that are tasked with protecting that lineage. We have egregores in a lineage that are tasked with providing information to the lineage. We can also have egregores in that lineage that are like information gatherers, provide information, especially if you have spiritual practitioners in that lineage and they need to get information through divinations and other means. They can create egregores that go out and get information and bring it back to them. There are some lineages, especially those of the royal and warrior lineages, that can have egregores that help them in battle so that when they go to war, um, you know, they will win. Okay. Now, if you have two families with two different egregores, I guess whoever's egregore is the stronger wins. So, egregores can be created for families for a variety of reasons. Okay. There is hardly anything that you want an egregore to do that it will not do. Some egregores are created for wealth, the acquisition of wealth, the keeping of wealth, the attraction of wealth. And remember that egregores are created by groups of people. One person cannot create an egregore. An egregore cannot be created by one person, it has to be created by a group. And that is why a family or a lineage is an ideal soil for this kind of spiritual work or occult work. If one person is creating something like that, it's called a servitor. And the reach and the power of a servitor is usually much more limited than that of an egregore. When a family creates an egregore and they say to that egregore, we want you to be perpetuated with our family. In other words, you're going to influence us, influence our children, influence our grandchildren, influence our great grandchildren, influence our great great grandchildren, and so on and so forth. That egregore becomes a lineage egregore. And they will normally educate each generation on how to keep that egregore fed and working. Oftentimes, the initial ancestors who created these egregores will not provide the off switch to this egregore to their descendants because they want this egregore to keep on working on behalf of the family. So let's say, for instance, the family decided, hey, we want to be the most powerful clan or most powerful family around these parts, and they create this egregore that goes around um, making life difficult for everybody around them. They're not going to provide the off switch willy-nilly to their children because they might have a kid who might say, "Oh, well, it's not fair that we created an egregore to make life difficult for our neighbors. I'm going to switch it off. It's not nice." No. So they're not going to give you the switch to switch it off. So you will keep on, that egregore will keep on doing its thing and making people in the neighborhood uncomfortable and unhappy and whatnot because that's what that egregore was created to do. And what the ancestors or the original creator of that egregore will do is that they will say, here's how to feed this egregore. There are lineages who think, and I want you to hear me on this and hear me well. There are lineages, there are families who think that they have a spirit guide, that they're working with a spirit guide or they're working with a deity, but in reality, they're not. They're working with an egregore. In order to get cooperation and compliance with the egregore, the ancestors may have informed their family and their descendants that what they're working with is a spirit guide. But in reality, it is not a spirit guide, it's an egregore. And the easy way to know is if it's an egregore or not is to find out, is it in charge of a place or is it just working with a family? And again, I repeat, a spirit guide is in charge of something. An egregore is not in charge of something. So if you, for instance, have actual connection with Yamaya, I'm not talking about the egregore of Yamaya. If you actually have connection with Yamaya herself, that feminine energy, she is not an egregore because Yamaya is in charge of the surface of the ocean and a specific part of the ocean. But if you have somebody who's living in, if you have someone who's living in Minnesota, or someone who's living in Calgary, or someone who's living in Mexico City, and they're saying to you that they have the real Yamaya there with them, you can raise an eyebrow. Don't say nothing. Don't get into a fight with the person. You could just quietly raise one of your eyebrows. Okay. You can quietly raise one of your eyebrows. Let your eyebrows do the talking. Don't get involved. Just let your eyebrows do the talking. Oh, okay. Oh, you do have Yamaya. Yamaya showed up in Calgary, Alberta. How interesting. Oh no. Yeah, we have Yamaya in Alaska. Fascinating. Yamaya showed up in Moscow, Russia. How nice. So, don't argue with the person. Just keep it moving. Okay. Don't get involved. You don't have to get involved in everything. Okay. Yeah, but if you went, say, for instance, to Lagos, Nigeria, and somebody says to you, "Hey, I'm working with Yamaya," chances are they are working with Yamaya. Okay. Now, I know some people out in Brazil are going to be up in arms and say, "What do you mean? We have Yamaya over here." Are you sure? Are you sure you have the real Yamaya? Or do you have an ancient goddess that you have renamed Yamaya that you're working with? And you're calling that deity Yamaya? Because a lot of those places, especially in the Caribbean and South America, even here in the Americas, they already had their own deities, gods, and goddesses in place in charge of the area. And people would come and rename them, call them something else. And the spirit guide will be like, you can call me whatever as long as you feed me and venerate me and recognize my energy and call me whatever. And I did a class on the origins of Archangel Michael. That's a prime example of changing the name of an original spirit guide. And you can go to my YouTube channel and watch the replay of that. The origins of Archangel Michael. Okay. So when we talk about egregores perform certain tasks. And so if a family every morning will do certain rituals and they say, we need you to protect us, and you're protecting us. You're not, so you're protecting us in the Hope family. You're protecting us in the Hope family. You're not protecting us you're not protecting the Allen family. That's an egregore. If the Hope family can go and do things for this thing, that protects them, but the Allen family who lives in the same village with them cannot do things. That's an egregore. Or you might have a situation where the Hope family and the Allen family did get together and create this egregore. So this egregore serves both the Hope family and the Allen family, but doesn't serve the Brown family. That's their egregore. That egregore doesn't work with the Brown family. And so the representations of the tasks of some of these egregores can be found in the representations that these families use as their family symbols. If you look at, for instance, a whole bunch of royal families in Europe, you look at their coat of arms, you will see what kind of egregores they work with based on their coat of arms. Now, sometimes when you have a family working with an actual deity that is in charge of their place, they may represent that deity, that spirit guide, on their coat of arms, on their emblems. For instance, if you look at the former uh, lieutenant governor of Quebec in Canada, she's from Haiti. When she created her coat of arms for her tenure as the lieutenant governor, or the governor general. No, it's not the governor general is all over Canada, the lieutenant governor of Quebec. And I did a class on that too. It should be somewhere on my YouTube channel. I think her first name was Marie. She was from Haiti. You can see they just said, "Oh, these are the representations." Thank you, Esther, Madame Jean. Yeah. So, it, it- people are like, "Oh, what a beautiful!" But if you really look at that coat of arms, if you look at the symbology in there, you will know what she and her lineage are working with. You will see representations of water spirit guides in it. Okay. And when you read up the history about how it was put together, you will see references being made to Haiti, and Haiti is a place. Haiti is a place. So you know that, yeah, she and her lineage are working with spirit gods and not egregores. They may have their family egregores in addition to the spirit guides. Okay. Okay. So it is not unusual for families to have egregores, and families, especially ancient families, tend to have multiple egregores. We also, in previous classes about egregores, talked about the weakening or the breakdown of egregores. And typically, egregores will break down, will dissipate when they're no longer fed. When they're no longer fed energy, and the kind of energy that was used to create them, and the kind of energy that they need, and the kind of energy that they were promised. When an egregore is created, it is usually primed or programmed with the kind of energy it will consume in order to ensure its longevity. So that is why some egregores will need you to um, cry and weep and fast, like some of the Jesus egregores. Some will need um, some whippings and thrashings. Okay. Um, some will accept flowers, some will accept incense. But some pretty powerful egregores that were set up for not so good purposes might be fed with very high sources, energy sources. And if you don't know what I mean by that, ask your neighbor. What does Dr. Tochi mean by that? Very high energy sources. And those energy sources are living energy sources. So not all egregores are created equal. We need to understand this. Not all egregores are created equal. And so if, let's say, for instance, let me pick someone here. Okay, let's say Esther. So the youth family uh created their own egregore, and Esther was not told how to maintain this egregore. All she knows is that she's gaining the benefits of this egregore. Maybe in the youth family, they created an egregore for strength, for power. Maybe they're a family of fighters. Okay. Maybe they're a family of warriors and soldiers and things of that nature. And so Esther is born and she's not told about this egregore. And she's not told about this egregore because by the time she was born, the youth family was prosperous, they're powerful, they have money, and so on and so on and so forth. So everybody goes to church. But no one talks about the egregore. So Esther grows up and she has no idea about this egregore. So she's going to church and she's a member of the choir. Maybe she's a member of the dancing team. You know, some churches have the dancing team. They call them the praise. What do they call them? The ones that wear the fancy clothes and the leggings and they're, dancing like that in their churches, and so when they're singing songs and these people come out in front of the church and they're, you know, doing their dance. And so maybe Esther's doing that with zero clue as to why her family is powerful, why the people in her family are ferocious. She has no idea why folks in her family are aggressive and assertive and they won't back down from a fight. She has no idea. All she knows is that in their family all of them be fighters. They're ready for a takedown at any given point in time. You touch one, you touch the group, everybody be rioting. Okay, Mrs. T said litur- liturgical dancers. Okay. Yeah, I've seen them. Some of them, they come to church and they're, you know, I'm waiting for the king. I'm going to meet the king, the king, the king. Yeah. And they wear these flowy things. So she has no idea. So she spends her time doing this. And she grows up, gets married. Maybe she marries a pastor. And she's not feeding this egregore. Her children are not feeding the egregore. Her grandchildren are not feeding the egregore. A number of things could happen here. That lineage and egregore, depending on how powerful it is, could start knocking at her spiritual door. She could be having nightmares or strange dreams. And the interesting thing is, she'll be having those dreams, but her husband will not be having the dream. She'll have the dreams, her children will have the dreams, her grandchildren will have the dreams, but not her husband. And no one in the husband's family will have that dream because that egregore is for that family. And maybe in that dream, she'll be dreaming of something saying, "Why aren't you feeding me? Why are you ignoring me? Why are you not making me happy? And she wakes up from the dream and she's like, what the hell? And her children will be like, Mommy, Mommy, we had this dream where this strange thing came and said, why are you not feeding me? Remember, we had something similar with Sister Faustina, who was involved in the creation of Jesus of Divine Mercy. When it came to her, it was the same thing. She had this apparition of Jesus saying to her, why are you ignoring me? Why are you not feeding me? Why are you not doing the needful? And when she finally decided to surrender to it, then it started saying, you must give me total obedience, total surrender, total adoration. Okay. So now Esther and her children and grandchildren are now having these strange dreams. Her husband's not having the dream. The husband's family, they're not having the dream. But she's having this dream now where this thing is coming to her in the night and saying, feed me. Why are you not feeding me? Are you not going to feed me? And then what does Esther do as a good Christian? She goes over to her pastor and she says to her pastor, I have this strange thing coming to me at night asking me, why you're not feeding me? And the pastor says, oh, it's a demon. Bind it and cast it in the name of Jesus. So next time Esther has the dream, she's yelling, I cast you and I bind you. And depending on the strength of that egregore, the egregore could just sigh and go and dissipate because it has no one feeding it. So it just basically dissipates into nothingness over time. Or if it is a particularly strong egregore, especially an egregore that has been used to higher level energy feedings, it will now start attacking Esther and her children. It will start causing problems for her and her family. And so when you go to those churches that will tell you, oh, your ancestors are evil. Your ancestors used to offer these kinds of offerings, living offerings that were abominations, and your ancestors sacrificed you and all the descendants to blah, 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 blah. This is really what that points to. But a lot of pastors who are preaching this don't know the actual mechanics of it. Yeah, so they just use a broad brush and tell everybody, oh, your ancestors are evil. All of them were making living sacrifices, and all of them were worshiping demons, and all of them were doing these bad things, and all, and all, and all. But remember what we're saying at the beginning of the class. Some egregores are good, and some were not so good. Some were good, and some were not so good. So we can't use a broad brush and say all of them were bad. But let's say in the case of Esther Ute, her egregore was a little bit of the ferocious sort of egregore. So it will do everything and anything within its power to survive. It will start making her life difficult. It will start making her children's lives difficult. And maybe one of her children or grandchildren might be spiritually inclined. And that child might say, you know what? I have a feeling that this comes from my ancestors. Let me figure out what it would take for me to take care of this thing. And they start feeding that egregore. Then the egregore calms down and starts performing its task for that lineage. It goes back to doing what it does for that lineage because it's almost like a contract. But it's not quite a contract because you can't really have a contract with an egregore. You can have a contract with a deity, you can have a contract with a spirit guide, but you can't have a contract with an egregore. Okay. Lineage egregores are usually strongest in the ancestral homes. And depending on how they were anchored, and I want you to hear me in this, depending on how that egregore was anchored, because remember that in the creation of an egregore, it needs a physical anchor. So depending on how it's anchored, it may or may not travel with the descendants of the family. And this is the reason why you might have people in the same family, but only one line of that family is experiencing something that the other lines of that lineage are not experiencing. Let me give an example. So let's say Esther is sister to Miss T, and both of them come from the Hope family. Okay, maybe there are three sisters: Hope, Esther, and Misty. And the egregore is anchored to Esther's lineage. You might find out that Miss T and Hope can be going about their own business, have their children, have their grandchildren, and they're going about their business. But you'll find out that Esther and her children and her grandchildren are the ones who are the most entangled with this egregore. Hello, love three. Hello, happy. Okay. So they're the ones having the dreams, and they're the ones having the messages, and they're the ones that are connecting the most with this egregore. They're the ones having the experiences. Miss T and Hope could be like, we're not seeing anything, we're not hearing anything. Things may not be going well for them because the egregore is not working on their behalf. But the person who will be the most troubled by the absence or the non-functioning of this egregore would be Esther out of three sisters. Some ancestors anchored these egregores not just psychically through veneration and offerings, but also in their spiritual DNA. So they would have communion with these egregores. And these egregores, the psychic tentacles of these egregores become embedded in their DNA. So when you have that kind of situation, it doesn't matter where their descendants are, they're all subject to the control of this egregore as long as that egregore is still active. And so this is the reason why you would have some people, their ancestors were sold into slavery. And I want you to hear me on this. I want you to hear me on this. There are some people whose ancestors were sold into slavery. They are several generations away from Africa or from the Middle East or from wherever their ancestors were, or like the Caucasus, because there are a lot of white folks from the Caucasus region that got sold. It's not just Africans that got sold. Okay. If a sacrifice, an offering is made on their behalf in their ancestral home, they will reap the benefits wherever they are in the world. That is why some people, let's say, for example, if the person is from Haiti, and the egregore is still strong and effective. Or let me even say their covenant with a deity is in their DNA. You can go and do a ritual for them with an offering, a living offering for them in Africa, and they will reap the benefits in Haiti. If they're living in America, let's say they were born in Haiti and living in America, they will still get the benefits of it in America because their lineage is still plugged in. But you will have other people who are from Haiti. Their parents were also sold. And you can do all the rituals you want in Africa, and they're not going to reap any benefit because they have been disconnected. That's why I recommend a divination. If someone from Jamaica came to me and said, "Oh, here's my issue," and the divination said, "Well, the person needs to make an offering," and the person says, "Oh, I don't know anybody in Jamaica who can help me with the offering. We all are Seventh-day Adventists now, and I'm the only person in my family who's exploring spirituality." I would do divination to find out if I did a ritual for them in Texas or in Africa or wherever that is not Jamaica, will it work? And if it says no, I will tell the person it won't work. They themselves will have to figure out a way to get their stuff done for them in Jamaica. Now, there are instances where people will insist, "No, no, I don't have anybody. I don't care. Just do it for me." And you keep on telling the person, this will not work. And the person keeps insisting because they think that they think that authentic spiritual work is magic. And I keep saying it is not magic. Authentic spiritual work takes time, and it takes planning, and it takes knowledge, and it takes circumspection. There are situations like that where if the divination indicates that if something is being done for them elsewhere, it's not going to work, I would tell the person, try doing something on your own where you are, because you are the person who is being affected by whatever situation it is that you're doing. So see what you can start doing by yourself for yourself. Because at the end of the day, every single one of us has spiritual agency. There is no one amongst us who does not have any kind of spiritual power. Everybody has at least a modicum of spiritual power. So, worst case scenario, you can sit down where you are and start trying something on your own. So, basically, if you have an egregore, a lineage egregore operating within your family, and you start seeing things that people would call generational curses, you need to investigate, are they really curses or are they really the effects of a lineage egregore? And is it a lineage egregore that wants to be fed? A lineage egregore that is hungry? And if that lineage egregore is existing in your lineage, you need to find out what is the function of that egregore. Not all generational curses are curses. It is very rare to have a lineage that doesn't have any kind of egregore. And multiple egregores can exist within a lineage. You can have a lineage with a Jesus egregore attached, a shadow mother egregore attached, shadow father egregore attached, a lineage egregore attached, a whole bunch of other egregores attached to that family. And depending on how they manage it, it can either work for them or work against them. That's why you will see some families is just like one effing disaster after another. There's some families, there are families you go to those families and they have problems that defy logic. They have issues that are so mind-boggling that you will just say, you know what, just I know I don't drink, but somebody give me a shot of vodka, give me a shot of whiskey or something, because my brain cannot compute what is happening with these people right now. But the church will call it demon possession. Okay. So Muslims will tell you it's shaitan or it's the jinn. Some jinns that are out there, people are thinking they're jinns, they're actually egregores. Human created egregores. But because people don't have the language for it, they will say it's demons. It's not demons. It's an egregore. And each generation feeds it knowingly or unknowingly. But because people don't have the language to describe it, they will tell you, oh, it's demonic. But ask that pastor or prophet or apostle or imam or mufti to describe the exact nature of that demon. They won't be able to. They will just tell you, oh, look at Leviticus chapter John verse Mark. They can't describe it. They will just put a label on it and tell you it's demonic. But if you say, describe it, what is the nature of the so-called demon? What is its function? They can't tell you. They will look in the Bible and they'll tell you, okay, it's a demon of Jezebel. It's a Jezebel spirit. It's the spirit of Ahab. And that's about all they can tell you. If you have a lineage egregore that is not working on your behalf, can you separate from it? That is the question I know that most people will be interested in. And the short answer is yes. You can starve it. You can do a cord cutting. I have videos, free video classes on cord cutting on my YouTube channel. You can do a cord cutting. But first of all, you have to understand how this egregore gets fed. Because if you have an egregore that feeds on negative emotions, and you notice in your lineage, everybody's fighting all the time, everybody attacking each other all the time, everybody being nasty to each other all the time, folks just doing unspeakable things to each other all the time. That's how that egregore is feeding. And you have to start disconnecting from that behavior. And you may have to distance yourself or separate yourself from your family in order to accomplish that. Okay. Thank you for the gifts, love 3. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the perfume. I didn't know that I smelt bad. Thank you for the donuts. Okay. If you come from a family where people, Kina says, well, how about it when it's health problems? Do a divination first to find out what's going on. I did a video class a couple of Sundays ago on intergenerational curses and how to identify intergenerational curses. Because most people will be suffering from something and they'll say, oh, I know I'm cursed. This is an intergenerational curse. Does anybody remember the definition of an intergenerational curse from our class? Was it last Sunday? No, not last Sunday, the Sunday before last Sunday. Who remembers one way to identify an intergenerational curse? Who remembers the definition? For an intergenerational curse? We did it in the class 2 Sundays ago. Because I know there are people who are going to be sitting there and saying, oh yeah, I'm under an intergenerational curse. How do you know that what you're going through or what you're being subjected to is indeed an intergenerational curse? Who remembers from that class? Correct. Correct. Phoenix, easy, correct. An intergenerational curse must occur repeatedly from one generation to the next. That is correct. And it has to be the same thing. So if your grandmother had diabetes and your mother had heart problems and you are having gout, that's not an intergenerational curse. That's just the quick and dirty of it. The meaning is in the name. Intergenerational. The name is in it. I mean, the definition is in the name. Intergenerational. From generation to generation. And it must be the same thing. The grandfather had it. The daughter had it. The son had it. The great granddaughter had it. Same thing. As an intergenerational curse. Is not 100%, but is very likely that is an intergenerational curse. Or an intergenerational problem. Okay. I don't know that egregores will cause health problems. They're more concerned with psychic. They're more concerned with psychic or spiritual experiences. They're more concerned with psychic or spiritual experiences. And that's why when I illustrated with a dream, nightmares. When I said, oh, imagine that Esther didn't know about this family egregore. She's having the nightmares. Her children are having the nightmares, and her grandchildren are having the same nightmares. And it's about the same thing, same creature, same person showing up in their dreams. So it's not health. It can also show up as difficulties. You might find out that the first son of the first son of the first son, there are instances you'll see that, or the first daughter of the first daughter of the first daughter, or the last child of the last child of the last child. Everyone else is doing well in the family. Only this particular line is having issues. And so the people in that line of the lineage need to go fix it. Or you might find let me give an example. You might have a first son of a first son of a first son, you know, financially unstable. All the other brothers are doing okay. All the sisters are doing okay. But the first son of the first son of the first son of the first son of the first son never doing well financially. And it doesn't matter what they do, they don't do well. But the brothers will be doing well. The sisters will be doing well. Their children will be doing well. They might get a little financial hits here and there. They will still have their problems here and there because there's no human being who doesn't have problems. But you will notice that the first son of the first son of the first son, or whatever that pattern is, first daughter of the first daughter of the first daughter of the last, something like that, they're the ones always having the problem. Remember, I gave the example of the family. Remember when I was doing the intergenerational curses, I gave the example of the family that could never have more than one son. They could not have more than one living child, and that living child had to be a son. Didn't matter who married who, when they got married, who they married to. In that family, that lineage, they could only have one living son. Just sometimes that can come from intergenerational covenants, intergenerational agreements. It can come from egregores. And so that's why we do divinations. That's why you go to a reputable spiritual practitioner, you get a divination done so that you know what you're working with. Okay. So I'm gonna let y'all go. TikTok folks, you are so lucky. My battery went from 64% to 24%. So we had at least enough battery power for an hour, a little over an hour. Okay. If you've learned something from today's class, let's have your oh yeah in the comment section. If you've learned something, let's have your oh yeah. Okay. Thank you, Fola. Thank you, Hope 609. If you have learned something from today's class, let's have your oh yeah. Okay, looks like it's just two people learned something. Okay, Nina, Estrellada, thank you. Esther Youth, thank you. Love Free, thank you. Miss Rosemary, thank you. Miss T, thank you. Phoenix Easy, thank you. Joy Amoya, thank you. What is the overall picture that we're trying to paint here? One of the things you need to do in your life, okay, to start having more power over your life and the outcomes you want is to understand the possible things that can be holding you back. Thank you, Peekaboo. Many of us are going through life and we may go. Has this ever happened to you that you go for a divination and the person, let's say, is a psychic or a medium or a tarot card reader or whoever it is, and they say to you, oh, you have a beautiful destiny. It is your destiny to be rich. It's your destiny to be powerful. It's your destiny to be all these big and wonderful things. It's your destiny to be rich. It's your destiny to be admired. It's your destiny to be big. It's your destiny to be powerful. But you are not manifesting that in your life. And you're like, wait a minute. If you're telling me in this divination I'm supposed to be all these great and wonderful things, why am I struggling at this hourly job? Or why am I at this fucked up job here with a fucked up boss? And then you go to another person and they'll tell you the same thing. You are supposed to be the head of this, and you're supposed to be in charge of that, and you're supposed to be at the head and not the tail. You're supposed to be the boss woman or the boss man. And then you leave that place and you're like, but I'm not the boss man. I'm not the boss lady. What's going on? And so you're going to all these people and getting these divinations, and all of them are telling you about how powerful you are. Maybe you went to the church and your prophet or prophetess said, you are such a powerful person, and you can do this, and you're standing there and you're like, y'all are telling me this, but I'm struggling to pay my rent. I I I don't have money. My bank account is negative. Okay. And they're telling you all these things, and you're there and you're saying to them, how do I get to be this powerful person that y'all are seeing in the cards that I am? Or you're having a vision, the prophet is like, I prophesy. How do I get there? All of you are telling me I have a beautiful husband waiting for me. I have a beautiful wife waiting for me. I'm going to have, but I'm not seeing it. And they're telling you, okay, buy this candle. Or they'll tell you to go on 40 days and 40 nights of fasting. Or go and do this ritual. Go and make this sacrifice. Go and do this and that. And you're doing all of these and all of that. And sometimes you do those things and you see like a little shift, but that shift is not a permanent shift. And then you suddenly find yourself going back to square one. And then somebody else says, no, here's the other ritual you need to do, or go and do this spell, or go and pay this person to do this and pay them to do that. You need to understand something about divination sometimes. I do divinations and I'm going to give you the forbidden fruit. We can only see what we have been allowed to see. We can only see in divination what we have been allowed to see. If we have not been shown or not allowed to see, we cannot tell you what we did not see. And a lot of practitioners, and I'm not going to say here whether they're genuine practitioners or not, I'm just going to use a general term and say practitioners, a lot of them will not tell you that they don't see everything. Some of them will never even tell you that they don't see anything, but they will give you a message of comfort because they don't want you to leave feeling disappointed. Some of them will give you, let me not just say some of them, some of us will give you a message of comfort when we see that you're unwilling or unable to hear the truth. So, to avoid conflict, we will tell you what you want to hear. And that thing we're telling you is not true. Because we want to avoid problems. Because I have found out in my own practice that when I tell people the truth and the truth does not line up with what the person wants to hear, the person usually thinks I'm not a nice person. And I'm putting it mildly. And some people will try to force the issue. They'll keep on saying, but other people told me this. Why are you telling me something different? But I went to 4 other people before I came to you, and those 4 people told me this. Why are you saying something different? And then they'll get into conflict with me. So there's sometimes we'll be like, okay, if this person is just going to be hot and bothered about that, I'm just going to fall in line with what they said so I can have my peace of mind and go about my business and get my change, get my coins. And we'll let the person go figure themselves out. Thank you, Love 3. That kind of looked cool. But the reason why I'm teaching you about egregores is so that you will know some of the chains that keep you from manifesting, from achieving the things that you have set out for yourself. Some of the things that keep you from manifesting your destiny. There are sometimes you can have a very powerful egregore operational in your lineage, and the practitioner may have an inkling of it, but not have the full picture. So that's why I provide these foundational classes so that it will cause you to do some research on your own. And then you can start identifying those things that you are attached to that are not working in your favor. Thank you. Okay. Because some of us are attached to these egregores that are draining the lives out of us. And it doesn't matter how many rituals and spells and offerings and prayers we do, we are experiencing spiritual leakages. So we don't have enough energy present on ground to manifest what we want. Because we have these egregores siphoning energy away from us. And we have certain behaviors and attitudes and things, drama going on with us that is preventing us from having enough energy to get that thing that we're trying to reach. So it is not just sufficient to say, oh, I no longer go to church. I don't believe in Jesus anymore. I don't believe in the church things anymore. Are you still attached to the Jesus egregore? There are some people who have left church for over 20 years, but they're still connected to the Jesus egregore. Or maybe they're feeding the Jesus egregore and they're feeding a Yamaya egregore and they're feeding their shadow father egregore and feeding their shadow mother egregore. And they're wondering why things are not going well for them in life. You have no energy left. And your spiritual crew, they're doing all they can to pump in enough energy to keep you alive, that there isn't enough energy left over to manifest for you what you want. Because they are just like a fire brigade, they're busy putting out all the fires in your life, trying to keep you alive, that there's no time and energy and resources available to manifest the other things you want. Because you and your spiritual crew are in survival mode. An anti baptism is not sufficient to let go of a Christian egregore. Go watch my class on the Jesus egregore. Repudiating the church and repudiating Jesus is not sufficient to let go of that egregore if you are attached to it. And I already tackled that in those videos, so I encourage you to go watch the replay. Okay. So sometimes when you have spent so much time and energy and money and resources on rituals to correct a situation, and that situation is not being corrected, I want to humbly propose to you to start looking at yourself. Because there are many times we are the ones who are sabotaging our own spiritual efforts. And I do have an old video class on what if you are the problem. And I encourage you to go look for that video in my YouTube channel. What if you are the problem? And you're doing all these rituals, you're doing all these spells, you're doing all these prayers, you're doing all these invocations, you're going to all these churches, you're getting all this work done, you're doing all these divinations, and your situation is not improving. There are many times we are our own stumbling block because energy is being pumped in to solve the problem, but we are the ones leaking the energy. So there's insufficient energy available to solve the problem. Imagine that you are living in a storied building. Okay. You have a top floor and a bottom floor. And the person on the top floor is taking a shower. What happens when someone on the ground floor switches on their faucet or switches on their shower? The person on the top floor will experience a pressure loss and they will have less water for their shower because the person on the ground floor opened up their faucet or opened up their tap. If you are doing all this work to solve your problems, but you are still feeding an egregore, the chances of that work succeeding are much lower. This is why I'm teaching about things like egregores and generational curses and things of this nature, because these are the chains that hold us back. And then we turn around and we start blaming the spiritual practitioner. Oh, I paid you all this money and you told me once you do this ritual or once you do this work, my problem will be solved. Meanwhile, you are the Judas. You are the Judas in the middle of the 12. You are the Judas in the midst of the 12. And then you start blaming the practitioner. Oh, I paid you all this money and you told me that, once you do this, I will never have this problem again. Phoenix Easy says, never knew this information you're discussing. I feel ill informed because this info is not common. That's why we come here to eat forbidden fruit. That's why we come here to eat the forbidden fruit. I can't tell you how many times we would go out of our way to do a very powerful ritual. And the person we're doing the ritual for is making zero changes in their life. Zero. And they're not willing to make the required changes to ensure success. There was a lady who said her husband placed a curse on her. Okay. And they had been divorced for 11 years, 15 years, something like that. And she was like, oh, and my husband or ex-husband, when he left me, he said, no man will ever stay with me. I will never, ever get a man. So I said, you have no man now? And she says, well, I have one, but he's an ex-military. He's a vet. Nothing going on for him. He's a user. He's an abuser. His mother hates me. And the person I'm talking about, this person I was talking about, she was not a young person. She was not a young person. And she was having intimate relations with this other person on his schedule. So if he came 2 a.m. in the morning, knocking on her window, she would open up. She was starving for companionship. She was just starving for attention, starving for intimacy. So anyhow, which way the guy did it and gave it, she would take it. Sometimes he would come in with a piece and beat her about the head with it, and she would tolerate it as long as she got some, what. And this was a woman who was above 60 years of age. And she said, I know my ex-husband put a curse on me. Can you take it off? So we did a divination. We saw there was a whole bunch of things going on with her. She had health complications. She had alopecia. She had hemorrhoids. You might know hemorrhoids as piles. She had a whole bunch of things going on. I said to her, okay, tell you what, we can do a ritual for you, but this ritual will require you to abstain from intimacy for the next 30 days. Because we need to clean up the mess. And create a container within which the ritual will work. Can you avoid intimacy for the next 30 days after we do this ritual on your behalf? She said, oh, yeah. He's not here anyhow. And if he comes, I will tell him to leave me alone because I'm trying to get my life straight. I said, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we went ahead and did this huge ritual on her behalf. And when I said huge, I mean huge. Okay. When it was done, I called her and I said, it has been done. I'm sending you some favor and protection soap. Here are the instructions on how you're going to use it. Remember, no intimacy for the next 30 days. Can you fast? She goes, no, I'm diabetic. I can't really fast. I said, okay, do a modified fast. Can you do this modified fast? And I told her what it was, and she said yes. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, after a week, she called me and she said, nothing is working. After 1 week, she said, nothing is working. I said, it's just been a week. How do you know it's not working? She said, well, my man came back and, I didn't want to let him in, but he forced his way through into my home. And I kept telling him and he wouldn't listen to me. And I was telling him I was getting a ritual done and I'm not supposed to be intimate with no man. And he didn't care about that. So I said to her, so long story short, she said, well, you know, we just we did a little something, but I just figured if I called you and told you, you would know what to do. I figured maybe I could use that some of that soap you gave me to wash up. So I washed up myself with that soap you sent me, and I told him to wash up with the soap too. Hopefully, it should take care of things and, cancel out any other thing, cancel out anything. Full of Veritas says drum roll. 4 days. 4 days. Do you see that this is a problem on so many levels? 4 days. You could not avoid some dick for 30 days. You had to have it. 30 days. And she was like, well, I figured if I used some of that protection and favor soap you gave me, it will kind of probably wash away, the effects of, what we did, but it wasn't much, I didn't let him spend too much time by me. I told him he had to go back home to his mama because his mama's trailer is behind my trailer. So I had to tell him he couldn't sleep over because I didn't want him to make the situation worse. You did not want to worsen a situation you've already destroyed. Am I understanding you correctly, ma'am? A situation you have already destroyed. You don't want to make it worse. After dealing with that lady, that was when I decided I was no longer going to work with people from certain economic demographics because if I had charged her 2 or 3 times what I had charged her, she probably would not have slept with him in 4 days. But it was a lesson to me. Having 5 minutes, because I don't know about, maybe, you have young men now. I hear Gen Z guys can last for 3 hours, but for her age group, I mean, she was in her 60s and the guy she was messing with was in his 50s, so there was no way he could have been on her for more than 5 minutes. So you allowed 5 minutes to wreck a life-changing work. 5 minutes. You're in your 60s. This man is in his 50s, so there's no way he could have lasted more than 5 minutes. Yeah, the Gen Z folks now are doing 2 hours, 3 hours. And they actually go if you go on TikTok and Instagram, you hear them boasting about it. And you hear the young girl saying, if you can't last for 2 hours or 3 hours nonstop, I want nothing to do with you." So yeah, Gen Z, they're operating on a totally different dimension from the rest of us. Okay. So why am I saying this, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? When we are not getting what we want and we claim that we are doing spiritual work, we need to be authentic with ourselves. We need to be honest. You cannot keep on doing what you are doing and expect a different solution. If you don't give up that energy that caused the problem will not go away. If you don't give it up, if you don't change it. But many of us are unwilling to change. We just want, oh, I'm going to pay. I heard about the spiritual practitioner. I'm going to pay this kind of money and they're going to do some magic. And I can keep on eating all these cakes and sweet things, and I'm not going to change my diet, even though the doctor says that I am borderline diabetic. I'm not going to change any of that. All I need is this herbal tincture from somebody in Guyana, and I can keep on eating all the cake I want. And then you wonder why you failed. Fola Veritas says the ritual is the easiest part mostly. The commitment after the sacrifice is the hardest part for most. Appreciate the story. Correct. A lot of people who come back to me complaining are the ones who are leaking away the ritual energy. There are sometimes I will say to somebody, after this ritual, you cannot argue. You cannot get involved in a conflict. The very first thing they do is get involved in a fight. And then they'll tell me, no, no, no. If you know what happened to me, you will see that I was justified. Okay. You're more interested in being right. How do you like it now that your ritual has failed? You want to be right. It was more important to you to be right. So, how do you like it now that you're still stuck with your problem? How do you like it now? I can't tell you how many times we've done rituals, and I'll say to somebody, do not do this thing. And the person will go and do it. That very thing that they were told not to do, they will go and do it. And the person will come back to me and say, uh, um, God, God will not allow me to suffer. I, I cover myself with the blood. Okay, you cover yourself with the blood. Why did you do a ritual? Why didn't you just go ahead and cover yourself with the blood from the get go? I know you paid me, but why did you waste my time? You could have just given me that money as a donation. If you had given me that money as a donation, I wouldn't have gone out of my way to get all this work done and probably involve other people to get the work done. You could have just given me the money as a contribution and we would have called it a day. And you'll see people, oh, God forbid. Oh, it won't happen to me. God, I am the child of God. After you done went and single handedly effed up the whole work that was done. Now you remember that you're a child of God. And this is more common than you think. Don't do this. People will go and do it. Or we would do a ritual and say, okay, now we are complete with this ritual. We need you to go out and do this other thing. And the person doesn't do it. And you're asking the person, why did you not do this thing? And the person, I was scared. I was tired. I was busy. Um, well, I just figured I'd do it later. How do you expect spirit to do for you what you refuse to do for yourself? I want to know. Or how do you expect Dr. Tochi to do for you what you refuse to do for yourself? I know I kind of took off on today's topic of, lineage egregores, but it needs to be said. This conversation needs to be had. Some people will be told they have these egregores operational in their lineage. Stop feeding the egregore. And sometimes the egregore is not even the major problem in the lineage. Maybe they have a genuine problem, but feeding the egregore in their lineage is worsening their problem. Because the energy, the spiritual energy that they should have dedicated to the solution of their problem, they're busy using it to feed this egregore. And so your spiritual crew is there hoping that you are working hand in hand with them to tackle your problem. But you're like, oh no, you know what, spiritual crew? Y'all go ahead on. Y'all go ahead on and I'll catch up with you in a minute. Let me just go and indulge this egregore. And then you come back, nothing is working. Nothing is working. I tried my best, but nothing is working. And so, this is the reason why you go for a divination or you go to your prophets and they keep saying, I'm seeing all these great and powerful things about you. And you're sitting there and saying, but why am I not manifesting these things? You're welcome, Peekaboo. You go to the first person, they'll tell you you're a great person. You go to the second person, they tell you, oh, you're a powerful person. You go to the third person, they'll tell you, oh, you have a great destiny. You go to the fourth person, fifth person, everybody's saying all wonderful things. And you are saying, but how come I am still in my situation? Is it possible that you are the weakest link? And oftentimes we're the weakest link. And y'all who've been following me for a while, you know that I never exclude myself. I include myself because I myself have often been the stumbling block to my own salvation. So when I teach from personal experience. I'm not teaching from what I've learned from books. Am I book learned? Yes, I am. That's why I have that DR in front of my name. But that's irrelevant to what we're saying. Here now we're talking about common sense. And even I myself have often acted like I didn't have a modicum of common sense. Even as recently as yesterday. So don't feel bad. I'm in the same boat. But I want you to learn from my mistakes, and I want you to learn from the mistakes of others. There is no amount of affirmations, invocations, incantations, rituals, spells, shadow work that you will do if you are the weakest link. There's no amount of fasting, prayer, zakat, sadak, contributions, tithes, offerings that you will do. Helping of others, charity to others, feeding the poor that you will do that will solve your problem if you are the weakest link. And sometimes we do that. It's a form of escapism. There are many of us who think, oh, if I spend my time helping others, God will solve my problems. Doesn't work that way. In other words, I'm not going to take responsibility. I'm not going to have agency, self agency for my problems. But instead of focusing on my problems and my solutions, I'm going to focus on other people so that I can get spiritual brownie points. And then God or Jesus or somebody's going to see these good works I'm doing. I will create good karma and I'll get what I want. It doesn't work like that. And many of us get deceived, and I'm going to just say it. Many of us get deceived by the stories we hear from people saying, oh, yeah, the reason why I'm the CEO or the president is because I gave of myself and I was selfless. And at the bottom, when I hit the bottom and there was nowhere to go, I surrendered and I said, it's not me, it's about others, and I'm going to serve others. And if it's the will of God, I'm going to make it. Bullshit. I'm going to sit here, wait for inspiration. If it's the will of God, bullshit. The people who are the wealthiest and the most powerful and the connected and they're getting things done, they didn't do it by themselves. And a lot of them are doing things that many of us are not willing to do in order to achieve that level of success. A lot of them are single minded about what they want, and many of us find it difficult to be single minded about anything. A lot of the people who are at the level of success that we admire and envy are doing things and sacrificing things that we are unwilling to do. They're willing to be obedient to the last fiber of their beings, but we're not willing to do that. Oh no, I must exercise my right. I have right. Like the young lady, we were trying to do a simple ritual. I'm like, set up an altar with simple four elements. And I folks be putting in feathers, uh, all kinds of ding dongs and dagadiggings and church keys and whatnot. And I'm like, what the fuck is all this on your altar? Oh, I want to represent my grandmothers and my grandfathers and my indigenous ancestors. You haven't even mastered the basics. And one of the basics is obedience. You want to honor, but you are not even obedient. How can you honor when obedience is difficult for you? Obeying instructions is difficult for you. Oh, but I have a right. Okay, you have a right. How have those rights solved the problems you are facing in your life? Tell me. Because we're so quick to claim that we have rights. How have those rights solved your problems in life? How have those rights helped you pay your rent, put food on your table, clothes on your back? And many of us out here are struggling to survive and struggling to get the basics, but we're the first to be screaming, my right. I want it my way. And you don't realize that you're the weakest link. As long as you are the weakest link, you will find it difficult to achieve your objectives. And this is a message that I have to remind myself. Because there are many times I go off into fantasy land and I'm fantasizing about helping this person and helping this person and helping this person, and I'm ignoring my own problems. There are many times I do that. I'm more concerned about helping other people solve their problems, but I'm neglecting myself and my own problems. So I want you to understand that you're not the only one struggling with that. Me too. And every time I do that, I suffer spiritual setbacks. Every time I put others' problems above my own, other people's needs above my own, I suffer spiritual setbacks. You know, we keep it real here, right? We keep it real here. So I'm not going to sit up here and pretend and say, oh, I'm a spiritual practitioner. My job is to solve everybody's problems. No, it isn't. My job is to teach by example. My job is to teach you what I have learned from experience. You can't give what you don't have. So, your first line of action, if we're going to quickly go back to what we were talking about earlier, our first line of action is to tackle our lineage egregores. Do the research. Find out what egregores are attached to your lineage. Go to my YouTube channel and watch videos on egregores, what an egregore is, how egregores are created, different types of egregores. Identify which ones are helping you and which ones are not helping you. Egregores are just one kind of spiritual chain that ties and binds many of us down. Just one. Many of us are just walking, moving bundles of chains and padlocks. Oh, I'm so stagnant. There's no breakthrough going on in my life. Nothing works, nothing succeeds. Yes, because you are just a walking bundle of chains and padlocks. The help you need cannot reach you. The help you need cannot even reach you. And when someone says to you, hey, you're bound in chains, you're like, what do you mean? I'm covered by the blood. I'm walking with my ancestors. I know my identity. I am the daughter of Oshun. I am the son of Shango. I am the mother of Israel in my church. And you're leaning back on all these labels. But when it's nighttime, you go back to your bed and you cry because you're still stuck with your problems. Despite all those titles. Of what use is it to be the daughter of Yamaya if you can't pay your rent? Of what use? Of what use is it to be mounted by Urzuli if you can't pay your rent? Of what use? Of what use is it to be a devout Catholic and you can't maintain a relationship that leads to marriage? Of what use? Of what use is all these groups you belong to and churches you belong to or whatever shrines or whatnot you belong to, and you cannot solve your problems? Of what use? It's of no use. So learn how to solve your problems. Learn how to look at yourself and say, am I the weakest link? Am I contributing to my problems? One of my spiritual daughters was telling me how she went to the water and she made an offering. And the water returned her offerings to her. And she's like, oh my God. She put her offerings in the water, in the sea, and the sea returned the offerings to her. And she was depressed. And she's like, Mama T, I don't know what to do. My water spirit guys have rejected my offerings. And I said, yes, they're supposed to. And she goes, what do you mean they're supposed to? Yes, because what you're asking for is an abomination. So they can't agree to it. You went to the water and you were asking your spirit guides to make you subservient to powers that were less than yours. How do you think they will agree to it? You went to the water and you were asking your spirit guides to help you placate and be under the power that was less than yours. How do you think your spiritual crew will agree to that? And you were called to spiritual practice. You were a spiritual practitioner. And you are asking your powerful crew to make you subservient to those who are weaker, lesser than you. How do you think they will accept that offering from your hand? I told her, I said, if I were your spiritual crew, I would have slapped you too. After throwing back your offerings at you, I will slap you too. I would set you back to factory settings. And she said to me, oh, you don't understand. No, I have all these things going on with me. Nothing is going well. It cannot go well. You are the weakest link. Cannot go well. It's not possible. When you do a ritual, you are disrupting the norm. You are stirring the pot. Things cannot remain the same. This is why sometimes people will do rituals and they will lose their jobs. They will do rituals and their marriages will fail or their relationships will break up. Because you have done this ritual and you're basically saying to your spiritual crew, I want you to come in and fix the situation in which I am right now. And your spiritual crew says, okay, you gave us permission. We're going to do it. And so they step in. And in order to put you where you need to be, they need to disrupt and they need to break up and destroy where you are. Because many of us are where we're not supposed to be. And then when that happens, oh my God, my situation is worse than where it was. I don't know why. I listened to you in the first place. Why? Yeah. Yeah. But you were the one that said you want to change. You were the one that said you want to change. It was you. You said you wanted change. I want better. Do you think you can be the same person and experience change? It's not possible. You cannot be the same person and get that change. It's not possible. Is anyone picking up what I'm dropping here? Is anyone here picking up what I'm dropping here? Thank you, Elder Light. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Starbust. Thank you, Hope Hope. Thank you, HLW. Thank you, Just J. Thank you, Nina. You cannot be the same person and get a different, better result. You can't continue moving at that level and magically find yourself at another level. Cannot happen. You can't have a baby and that baby will remain a baby forever. There are two options for any baby, any child you have. Two options. Either that child will grow or that child will die. But the child you have can never remain the same. It is not possible. It is not possible. If you have a child, that child has two options, either to grow up or to die. And if that child is growing, the child cannot keep on wearing the same clothes as is growing, cannot wear the same shoes, cannot wear the same underwear. The, the child's clothing, you have to buy more clothing. You cannot buy a whole bunch of baby clothes and say, well, this is going to last you till you hit 21. That's not going to happen. But some of us treat our spiritual lives that way. Oh no, I'm just going to continue doing my thing. And I'm going to come into the office and keep on fighting with these gossiping bitches here. And I'm going to show them who I am. And I'm going to dominate them. And they're not going to say a word. And they're not going to be able to do anything against me. But my situation is going to improve. But I'm still going to be in the office here fighting these people. Are you out of your mind? Many of us think that way. And and you go to that ritual practitioner, and the practitioner says to you, are you serious? You want this thing you're coming for? Yes, 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 I want it. Are you ready for the yes, 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 yes. But you want it on your own terms. Miss T says, be sure you're ready to accept change in order to improve your situation. I am a witness that your spiritual crew will do what is needed. Be careful what you ask for. 100%. Because you see, Miss T, there are a couple of things that happen here. Remember the analogy I just gave with the child? If you have a child, a baby, there are two options for that baby. Either that baby will grow and change, get bigger, or that baby will die. Those are the only two options. There's no third option. And the same thing applies to what we ask of our spiritual crew. If you go to your spiritual crew and you say, I want change, your spiritual crew can put that change on you or they can leave you alone. Your spiritual crew can put that change on you or they will leave you the fuck alone. And if they leave you alone, that's when you're sitting there and going, nothing has changed. I paid Dr. Tochi so much money and nothing changed. Because even your own spiritual crew, they're tired of you. Even your own spiritual crew is tired of you. So they're like, you know what? We're gonna leave this fool here to their devices because we can see that they're not interested in changing. And some other people's spiritual crew is like, okay, you gave us permission. Your word is law unto us. So here we come. And the person's like, yeah, ah. I thought I was gonna sleep. And when I wake up in the morning, I'll be covered in gold. Doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. And I've gotten to the point now that, you know what? If people, because I have wasted so much time and energy just trying to help people to get straight and help people to take their spiritual life seriously. I'm now at the point that if you want to fuck yourself up, go ahead. I will not get in your way of your fuck up. I won't. Because I'm out here trying to take care of my business, my life. So the energy that I'm spending trying to put you straight, I'm going to spend it on myself. So I'm of the opinion now if people want to fuck up their spiritual journey, their spiritual work, have at it. Have at it. I will just get out of your way and let you do you. Then you determine if you like the results you're getting. You determine. If I tell you it's this way and you want to do it your way, have it your way. Just like Burger King. Have it your way. And take full responsibility for whatever outcomes you get. Because many of us are out here on these streets more concerned about performance. We think that the spiritual life is some form of, hold on. So we're out here thinking that the spiritual life is some kind of performative art. Many of us think that the spiritual life is like some kind of performance. You know what? I'm going to come here and give a good show. A lot of us, that's what we believe. It's all about performance. I'm going to be performing rituals and performing invocations and performing prayers and performing whatever it is, and everybody's gonna see me as I do all these things. But you live a powerless life. If I came to you and I gave you a problem and I say, solve this problem, you can't. Because all you're doing is just performance. And many of us, that's all we do. Performance. Look at me. 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 Look at my fancy clothes. Look at my nails. Look at my eyes. Look at my bosom. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. No results. I want you to ask yourself, is my spiritual life yielding the results that I want? Is it? Am I struggling? Or am I getting everything? Everything. Not some things, but everything. And many of us, even as I'm asking this question, will lie to ourselves. Oh, yes, yes. Yes, I'm getting everything. But you still look at others with the eyes of envy. Oh, I don't know why I don't have that. And you're trying to compete with that, or compete with this person, or trying to do one-upmanship, or that you're doing all those things. You don't have yours. You're out there comparing yourself, and then in the comparison feel uncomfortable and feel dissatisfied. If I were to give you a problem, a real life problem to solve today, could you solve it? That's a true test. That is the true test. And you see people saying, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. One time I had a group of so called advanced students, and I posed a question to them. I said, if someone presented you with an infant running temperature, what would you do? And these were people who were paying $29.99 a month to be in my group. I had over 30 of them at that time. $29.99 a month on Facebook. Out of all the people that showed up for that class we had, live class we had that day, only one or two people answered that question correctly. Only one or two. So I disbanded the group. I said, it's a waste of my time maintaining this group. So I disbanded the group. I said, y'all are free. You can go home. Let's stop wasting each other's time here. Why are you paying $29.99 per month, but you're not demonstrating knowledge, you're not demonstrating wisdom, you're not demonstrating results in your life? What's the point? Why are we wasting our time? Why are we here deceiving ourselves? This is about what? 4 years ago. It is very easy to say what the problem is, but it's not as easy to say what the solution is. I repeat, it is very easy to point at the problem, but it's not as easy to point at the solution. Thank you all for coming to class this evening. As usual, my website is tochi.us or drtochi.com. You can book me there for your divinations, your dream interpretations, your spiritual practice coaching, spiritual counseling, and more. I have my events, courses, books, products listed there. I will be setting up another retreat for this October. So watch all my platforms for the announcement. We just came out of a 10-day fast and cleanse in September, and it was very eye-opening. It was transformative. It was humbling. It was for everybody who attended, including myself. It was because and from that 10-day retreat that I started teaching about the shadow mother and shadow father egregores. It was what emerged from that retreat that caused me to tackle those topics. So you can only imagine what was happening inside the retreat itself. Because my plan at the time was to continue with the different kinds of Jesus egregores. But there was so much that was being unpacked and deconstructed inside that retreat that I said, no, I need to teach a class on this. And then, as it happened, I had a couple of other people outside the retreat who were reaching out to me at the same time on that same topic. So I said, no, this was confirmation upon confirmation that this was a topic that needed to be addressed. The shadow mother egregore and the shadow father egregore. So even I have come to the understanding that there are things that these retreats and workshops, there are issues that they mine and bring to the surface that need to be discussed. And that's why when I taught that class on deconstructing the shadow mother egregore, I told my own personal examples. I told my own stories. And if you have not watched the replay, I encourage you to go to my YouTube and watch that replay. I'm able to tell my own story now and laugh about it because I had to go through therapy. But I do recognize that there are many people who have not gone through therapy for their experiences with the shadow mother and shadow father egregore. And I will encourage you, if you need to go through therapy for what you experienced, please do so. Please do so. It is worth it. Because there are many times our experiences with these egregores or the things holding us back. The energy of our rituals, the energy of our invocation, and all the spiritual work we're doing is sitting there but cannot be released because we're still feeding these egregores. And sometimes you have to go through some therapy in addition to cord cutting to free yourself, so that when you do your rituals and when you do your invocations and when you do all your spiritual work, things start happening faster because your energy is not being expended in feeding the egregore that's still attached to you. A lot of us are busy feeding egregores and feeding a whole bunch of things. And so there isn't enough energy out there for us to get what we want. And it's a process. I'm still working with mines. I'm still cord cutting. So I don't want to put myself out here as the perfect guru with zero attachments. That's not the case. The one thing I can assure you, if something works, if it worked for me, I will let you know, so that you can duplicate what I did for myself. Okay? We're thankful to our Creator, our guardian spirit, our ancestors, and our spirit guides for today's forbidden fruit. We're grateful. And we will rise. And we will fulfill our destinies. Ashe, Ise, Kamaga, Koza, Kasedi, one day, Aibobo, and Yenho. It is done, is finished, is complete, Mia. Obrigado. Amen. Ma'at. Love you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the likes and the gifts on TikTok. Thank you, appreciate you.